traz aí. My name is Frederick Learman. I am the CEO and creative director at Purple Puppet. Purple Puppet is a creative service studio.
Tá, o nome dele é Lima.
Hello.
Deixa eu dar uma conferida aqui. Quando eu escuto o som da caixinha de som, eu não sei se atrapalha aí, entendeu? Mas eu vou ligar um pouquinho do som do computador. Deixa eu dar uma conferida, uma parada
Hello.
aqui.
My name is Frederick Learman. I am the CEO and creative director at Purple Puppet. Purple Puppet is a creative service.
Falou até o nome dele de novo aqui.
My name is Frederick
Frederick
Learman.
Irmão. Frederickman, sei lá. Não é isso, eu tô procurando como é que eu vejo o esqueminha do... Tem de ver os comentários. Deixa eu conferir aqui. YouTube Studio. Tá rolando alguma coisa ao vivo. Isso. Blender Conference, traduzirei. Não, vou até apagar isso aqui, salva. Vou falar o que eu entendi, tá ligado? Esse aqui. Aí eu jogo isso pra cá. Aqui eu consigo ver. Isso. Aqui. Vamos dar a janela do OBS. Essa aqui. Vamos mudar pra cá. Vou jogar isso aqui. Vou jogar pra cá. Tá. Até ajeitar aqui pra facinho de eu ler. Fica bem facinho de eu ler agora. Vou voltar aqui. Vamos começar. Eu tenho que avisar o Robert. Que não. O que eu tava procurando? Não. Ctrl Shift T. Não era nada disso. O cara aí. Cadê? Cadê o bagulho do Blender? Eu não tava vendo esse. Ah, não, não era isso. Vamos voltar aqui, Blender. E Conference, né? Blender Conference. Era pra ter procurado era aqui dentro. Ao vivo, fechar playlist. Tem que ter. Conference 2024.
If money wasn't
Tá.
an issue. I think in the same vein, what would you design without ever requiring physical material? What if your entire creative process happened in a space where nothing is limited by cost or availability? I think it's easy for creatives to kind of cap ourselves with mental limitations. And I often feel like if a task is so overwhelmingly large or complex, it's easy to start kind of comforting ourselves with reasons as to why they can't be completed. I think things like lack of money, lack of resources, lack of time are all perfectly reasonable. But I also think it's very funny how much could be created and done with a little bit of delusion and a free tool like Blender. So, my name is Jessica Wiseman, I'm 23 years old, and I started off as a realism painter, now 3D animator and designer. I took the
Pô, não tô
unconventional approach
traduzindo nada, né? Foi mal, tô só viajando aqui na reação.
if money wasn't an issue.
Ela tá começando a frase meio de supetão, assim. Então a gente já começa ouvindo áudio no meio da conversa. Então ela permitiria criar se dinheiro não fosse um problema.
I think in the same vein, what would you design without
In the same vein é a mesma veia que você poderia desenhar sem
ever requiring physical material?
precisar de material
Your entire
físico.
creative process
E
was
se todo o
happened in a
material
space where nothing is
criativo,
limited by cost
nossa,
or
processo
availability.
criativo, né?
I think it happened in a
Se seu processo criativo fosse acontecer num espaço onde nada é limitado pelo custo ou disponibilidade. Ela pensa que criativo pensa, se é, e muitas vezes com tarefas, muitas vezes sinto como se as tarefas fossem tão exageradamente grandes ou complexas, é fácil começar a confortar-nos com algo que não pode ser completado. Falta de dinheiro, falta de recurso, falta de tempo são todos motivos perfeitamente razoáveis, mas eu também penso que é muito engraçado, talvez no sentido de curioso, quanto pode ser criado e feito com um pouco de ilusão e de liberdade de passeio como Blender. O nome dela é Jessica Wiseman. Ela tem 23 anos e começou como uma pintora de realismo e agora usa 3D animado. Ok. As a designer. Escolheu uma abordagem não convencional por volta de 2019 e tentou fazer uma carreira criativa de trabalho ao invés de
university.
tentar a universidade.
Before then, for a bit of context,
Mas antes, para acrescentar um pouco de
I
contexto,
spent the best part of
eu gastei a maior parte da
my
minha
early childhood
infância, nossa, sei lá, minha infância cedo,
constantly draw
constantemente
felt deeply in
desenhando
love
e se sentia
with the
apaixonada
challenge of realism
com o desafio do
in
realismo
all mediums later in
em
childhood.
todas as mídias,
And so,
até a adolescência.
out of a love for learning, I got hooked to 3D when I was 14 and took it a lot more
Então ela continuou estudando e ficou viciada em 3D e ela foi fisgada, foi fisgada pelo 3D quando tinha 14 anos
seriously at 18.
e um monte de de seriedade. Ela tomou um monte tomou um monte de seriedade. Transliteração. Com 18 anos.
My paintings
Quando
would take
minhas
too long for the
pinturas
projects and ideas that I wanted.
tomariam tempo demais para um projeto e ideias que ela queria
So
criar.
not only does 3D allow for a faster outflow of ideas, but
E não só o 3D permitia um fluxo de ideias, como
I wanted to create. And so not only does 3D allow for a faster outflow of ideas,
um fluxo para fora, né? Mais rápido de ideias, mas
Blender allows
Yeah,
that's
well,
constantly
from
updating
Blender.
kind of scratch
allows for that constantly updating of
that
scratch.
learning itch because learning almost felt endless.
Que ela tem uma coceirinha do aprendizado. E aprender para ela é sem esforço.
And so ultimately,
Então, sem fim e também ultimato,
over the last 4 years or so,
nos últimos 4 anos, mais ou menos, o Blender tem sido tipo a minha
man for
meu único braço direito. Meu único homem braço direito
generating ideas,
para gerar ideias, produtos, conceitos,
marketing,
marketing
my brand, short film
for my brand short films,
animations, and whatever.
animations. Bom, brand é coisa de marqueteiro, tá ligado? É marca. Marketing é de marcas, coisas aí, de mercado. For my brand short film animations. É porque ela tem uma marca de filmes curtas, animados. E qualquer marca.
Brands and projects that I've been
E projetos
working on.
ela tem trabalhado.
And I realized very quickly how
E percebeu muito rápido quão poderoso a ferramenta
to bring ideas
pode
to
trazer ideias
visualization.
para
So
visualização.
being able to have an idea
And so being able to have an idea. Então, tá. Visualização, falei disso. É porque a legenda do Google dá dá uma distraída. E sendo hábil, sendo capaz de ter uma ideia,
concept it,
conceito,
texture it, and
uma textura
build
e
off of the
construir
certain
o modelo the model, o modelo até um certo
realism
nível de realismo,
for manufacturing
abrir portas para manufatura, produtos, por
explaining ideas.
explanar ideia, explicar, explaining, explanar, por explicar ideias em,
Or visual way to
em uma forma visual
consumers.
para
After presenting a
consumidores
concept
e
that was once an
apresentando
idea
conceitos que foram uma vez uma
tangible
ideia
form,
e uma forma palpável, tangível,
things like material,
para coisas
shape,
como
and
material,
colours.
forma também, eu preciso pensar por esse lado,
Can
e
all be changed to whatever
cores que podem ser
you're
mudadas
liking.
de qualquer forma que você
All while
preferir.
not having
Eita. São 25 minutos, a gente viu 1 minuto, que eu tô traduzindo muito devagar.
to spend anything on product
Qualquer
sampling
coisa,
or hiring studio spaces.
gasta alguma coisa, certo?
Ou não
Produto,
existe.
sampling, sabe mais ou menos o que é sampling? É quando você... uma amostra. Sample é uma amostra. Caraca, aula de inglês grátis pra vocês. Sample é uma amostra. Olha que legal.
Professional cameras are not requiring even computers nowadays through the use of render farms and things like that. So as soon as this became super apparent to me, it almost felt like I just regained a bulkload of time. Because think about every single one of those points. Sampling products alone can take months. Hiring models for photo shoots can take weeks for prep and money. And for a lot of people, those are the exact reasons that stop them from starting a company. So there's examples of some renders that I've been sharing on my Instagram. And I think a great example of this is a project that I did with Artifacts and Nike as a competition, which was a great example of how Blender can be used not only for the final product, but for the kind of manufacturing plan and
Pode
bringing
crer,
an
pode
idea
crer, ó.
that once a sketch into a final form that can be rendered
Eu
out and
vou
explained
pular
to people.
aqui.
So this project, for example, was a product.
Exatamente, é o que eu tava procurando.
Hello, everybody.
Aí.
We're all here because we love NPR, I assume. Some stylized visuals, is that right? Or not, I guess. Jeez, all right. Well, that's what I'm talking about, so if you're in the wrong place, you better get out of here. My name is Wyatt Hall. I'm a director and animator based out of Los Angeles. When I started my animation company, Interstellar Studios, we were animating in Maya and then exporting Olympics to come into Blender for render. And part of that was because most of the animators at the time that I knew, they knew Maya. From the beginning, Interstellar has focused on stylized animation. And for that reason, it was always my dream to run the entire 3D pipeline completely in Blender. Back when 2.8 released, I'd already been following Blender for a really long time, and the performance and the usability and the features and everything that made 3D NPR viable for a small company like us, it was just simply too great to pass up. So today, I am happy to say that we successfully released our first Blender animation project and our first original IP called Samurai Blue Afterimage. And I'll be talking about it a lot in this presentation. That's a shot from it. Remember that shot, we'll come back to it at the end. But before I go too much further, I really want to give a big shout out to the Goo Engine team from Dylan Goo Studios. And late as usual, like the whole team, they released this fork of Blender called Goo Engine. What it does is basically it modifies Eevee to be more curated for NPR rendering. A lot of the techniques I'm going to cover in this presentation at the time were only possible in Goo Engine, and I'll point them out when they come up. So this presentation, like I said, is mostly going to focus on some of the techniques we used in my short film to render our really cool, stylized, anime-inspired visuals. I'll start out by explaining a little bit about how we plan and ideate concepts in pre-production, and then we'll dig into environments a little bit, show you some techniques and cool things for that. Then we'll get into characters, and finally I'll do a brief overview of how I composite all of that in After Effects. And at the very end of the talk, we'll come back to that first shot that I showed you guys on the cover page, and I'll break down some of our essential render passes and AOVs into how we bring all of that together. So to start things off, planning, concepting. I think we spent a little bit extra time in this stage than a typical 3D production, partly because we wanted our 3D assets to match our 2D designs as closely as possible. Therefore, we needed to be flexible and allow enough of time for experimentation to find our unique art style, one that blended the best of 2D and 3D mediums. So to start with, we went scouting, just like any good film project does. Fortunately, Samurai Blue is a story based and inspired on the street racing and car culture in Los Angeles.
Tá. Ele tá fazendo anime de corrida com Gu Engine. Beleza, eu não tô muito curioso pra isso não, falar a real. Porque no momento eu tô precisando de outra parada de NPR. Porque eu não tô usando Gu Engine. Mas se eu achar alguma coisa de... Ah, era isso aqui. Estilizado.
About how we achieved this look that you saw. Hello, thank you for joining me today. I'm Simon Thomas from the Blender Studio. I'm going to talk a little bit about procedural oil painting for film production with Blender and geometry nodes. So, most people probably already recognize.
A maioria das pessoas provavelmente já reconhecem
This fish here.
esse peixe.
If you don't recognize it, you should probably update your Blender because this is the
Se você não reconhece, provavelmente você precisa atualizar o seu Blender.
the splash screen for Blender 4.2. Maybe
A tela de launcher.
saw the screening yesterday of the gold showcase that we produced with the Blender Studio that this splash screen came out of. It was screening 2 times yesterday after the animation festival. If you didn't see it yet, then you get a little bit more of an insight now, but otherwise I'll talk about how we achieved this look that you saw. So I don't have to introduce Blender to anybody here, I assume, but let me talk a little bit about the Blender Studio because maybe there's some people that don't know what we do. The Blender Studio has basically been a key factor of Blender's success by doing something that's called content-driven development. And that's something very common for large studios in Hollywood or so, developing in-house software and technology, but less common for the world of commercial, off-the-shelf software, especially with open source. And Blender is pursuing this model with the Blender Studio. We have a team of artists, technical artists, working in close collaboration with the developers of Blender here at the headquarters in Amsterdam on the software of Blender, at the same time as creating projects with Blender, with the experimental version, testing it every day, and developing new features for it. And we've been doing that for a while. Me personally, I only start with like the last row of these films here, but we've been doing it for almost 20 years in total. And the goal is generally to create a lot of creative diversity with these different projects and pursue different creative challenges, so we can also push Blender in all sorts of different directions. And this is definitely not the most efficient way of doing this kind of content creation, but for the software development of Blender, it's something very, very valuable and something very unique. And there's a lot of knowledge about production with Blender that comes out of this, and technology that we develop at the Blender Studio. And the idea is that we share all of that with the Blender community, with people that are using Blender in productions, to learn from our struggles and see the whole process. So that's also something very important to our mission, to share all of that. And yeah, there's a relatively small independent team. You can find out more on the website, studio.blender.org. We have a subscription service to share all of the stuff that we're doing. And in my case personally, I work also very closely with the development team for geometry nodes, specifically in Blender, designing and reviewing new features. And yeah, so that was just a small section to give a bit more context about what we do, who we are. And now let's get more into the nitty-gritty oil painting stuff. So Project Gold. The general idea with this was that when it comes to rendering in mainstream 3D animations, it's kind of been done, the whole like realism idea of creating hyper-realistic animations. It's kind of a completed quest by this point, and you see a lot more also in current new coming projects, something like Spider-Verse, Arcane, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Wild Robot, that there's more of a drive towards something more gritty, organic in terms of rendering styles. And that's something we wanted to pursue as well and see how can we do this kind of thing in Blender and create a more like unique look in a way that is very specific to what we want to show with this project. And inspired by that, so since 2023 we started this project, Project Gold, and it was generally aimed at tackling this quest of something more stylized and creating a painterly look. But the painterly look is a bit easier said than done. It can mean a lot of different things. And even just talking about the art style, the amount of directions that you go into are endless, basically. And even within, like saying, okay, we want to do something oil painterly, that can mean endless different things. Like if you study different artists that have been doing oil paintings throughout the centuries, there's so many different techniques that you can learn from, directions that you can go into. So even within the realm of oil painting, there's already endless options. And here's some of the concept art that that was created for the project. Most of it by Florent Mazarel and Vivian Lodkowski. And we were just trying out different things, looking at different styles, and studying really what kind of makes up the style that we're looking for. And at the same time as just exploring the visual look of the style, we also, of course, need to tackle the technical challenges. So where in the shading and rendering pipeline do we actually define this style, because we need to implement it at the end of the day. So besides just studying the look that was created for the project, most of it by Florent Mazarel and Vivian Lodkowski. And we were just trying out different things, looking at different styles, and studying really what kind of makes up the style that we're looking for. And at the same time as just exploring the visual look of the style, we also, of course, need to tackle the technical challenges. So where in the shading and rendering pipeline do we actually define this style, because we need to implement it at the end of the day. So besides just studying the look, we need to also study how can we achieve this. And
sim, escolher um estilo dentro da categoria pintura a óleo é
I don't know if it was obvious,
muito vasto, realmente. Entendeu.
unique to a specific style. Could it,
Uhum.
as a tack on. Want the artist to just interact with tools that they have in the toolbar. It should be very simple, and the curve editing, stuff like that already exists in Blender to just drive the input of the procedural system. So we decide that you can use to drive, give us like,
Vamos lá. O que eu tô entendendo aqui olhando as figuras, viu? Porque fiquei sem paciência, cara.
how the system works and how it's integrated with geometry.
Rapaz, isso aqui é absurdo.
You know, so you get a lot of opportunities of coming up with creative solutions for technical problems, like for effects. So we had this light body of the character here, for example, where we could just use the same system that we have already for the brush strokes, and just instead of putting them on top of the surface, actually putting them into the volume of the character and creating this kind of light shape, which is kind of a unique thing. And it didn't really take that long to get to this result because we already had the system in place. We just need to drive it with a different input.
Ele usa o volume do personagem para colocar os tracinhos, brush strokes. Esse é o rolê. Porque a real é que a forma das coisas é isso aqui. É bem simplesão.
Yeah, everything that you looked at in the film basically looked like this in the viewport. It's just lots of 3D geometry, brush strokes everywhere. And I go over what exactly that means in a bit. And everything we want to go a little bit about with rendering turned on. kind of the inherent all painterly way because it's
Tá, em todos os
kind of
tipos.
the
Quais?
we just create a brushstroke of C by the environment and so the fact that everything is in 3D means that we have also PBR rendering shading model on these brushstrokes, so they're not just like the color, and then that's what you get, like when you do 2D painting, but it's painted with some meta information, like for example the color of the brushstrokes, but also rendered with the same kind of PBR material that we'd use on the asset itself. And that way it catches dynamic lighting effects, like also reflections and everything, just naturally, and you can, it just kind of works from every lighting scenario. And then on that brushstroke level, it also gives us a lot of visual flexibility of defining exactly how we want things.
Tinha até esquecido porque que eu tinha pegado o celular. Isso. Compartilhar.
To look, so even without changing anything about the textures of the asset itself, we can control a lot about like the look of the overall style of the character and the environments, but also the look of certain materials just by how we distribute the brushstrokes and how we give them different colors or different textures. Or we saw earlier also there were some brushstrokes that had like this canvas texture on top of them to kind of communicate a fabric material. There's all sorts of different opportunities of like meta information that you can stack into these brushstrokes that are not just the textures of the asset itself. Yes, and then just because of how the system works and how it's integrated with geometries, you get a lot of opportunities of coming up with creative solutions for technical problems, like for effects. So we had this light body of the character here, for example, where we could just use the same system that we have already for the brush strokes, and just instead of putting them on top of the surface, actually putting them into the volume of the character and creating this kind of light shape, which is kind of a unique thing. And it didn't really take that long to get to this result because we already had the system in place. We just need to drive it with a different input. And then right now, I already mentioned a little bit. We had some just manually drawn things. We also had some manually drawn effects that were frame by frame drawn because it's using the same brush strokes. And then we have flicker with it. Well, just a bunch of the brush strokes. And we have access. More expensive. He figures out to
Até agora está muito parecido com o que eu vejo geralmente em Tutorial, tá ligado? Já vi tutorial e tal. Isso já é bem difundido, tá ligado?
And then another way of inputting is literally just manual. So for that, here
Vamos ver aqui. Desenvolvendo um curta.
Hello,
Aí, esse aí que eu queria ver.
my name is Frederick Leerman. I am the CEO and Creative Director.
É o Frederick Lehman, produtor e diretor da Purple Puppet. Pode crer. Legenda traduzida para o português. Aí não ajuda, né? Polonês não, pô. Aí.
Is a creative service studio specialized in character work for real-time productions. We do character art, character rigging, character tool development, and animation. We also do internal projects, and one of those projects is Treasure Hunt. Treasure Hunt is an animated short film fully developed in Blender. So at the time of developing Treasure Hunt, we were using Blender for character art in production, but we were interested in using Blender for rigging and animation as well. So we designed a character that was appealing, stylized, and had attachments that would be interesting to rig and animate. This is the concept that was the final design for the character. So for the style of this character, we wanted a style that didn't have a lot of fine detail. So instead, we had secondary detail that is quite chunky and thick, basically. So it would be very readable from a distance. And you can see, for example, that the sleeves and the other parts of the design, they have a lot of thickness, when in reality they would probably be very thin. And that kind of helps create a consistency in the shape language of this specific style. Hand in hand with that, we also used displacement mapping because we knew that we were going to use cycles, and that was a good match. Using displacement mapping allowed us also to have a very clean topology. Clean topology is very fun to work with, and additionally it's easy to skin, easy to rig and you get great deformations, as opposed to modeling and all of the folds and the details into the topology itself. Additionally, if we have a clean topology like that, we can take the lowest or unsubdivided version and use it as a game character in something like Unreal,
Exatamente.
and then simply replace the displacement map with.
Tá. Não, isso é legal. Isso aqui é muito, muito conveniente, isso aqui. Rapaz. Só coisa boa.
Normal map. And we've actually done this previously for clients who wanted a game character for Unreal, but they also wanted to use that asset for marketing renders or cinematics. And simply then by replacing the normal map to displacement maps that allow them to use the same asset. So it offers quite a lot of flexibility. For the story of the short film, we knew that we wanted to highlight the expressiveness of the character. So we needed to create moments that allowed for that to happen. And so we had a moment of exploration, a moment of discovery, and a moment of danger. And that really gave opportunity for the character to be very visually expressive. For a project like this, storyboard is very important. It is really the first time that you have a visual of your project, and it allows you to do some initial planning. So you can get an idea of how much animation you will need, how much assets in general that you will need to develop, but also you will be able to identify and turn developed it and to quickly realize camera work is useful being art.
Hello. So, and yeah, that's another thing. So your animation, and you're like, okay, now I can spot stuff. I've been
Olha o cara do rigging, mano. O cara do rigging é muito mais casca grossa, né?
over focusing on, and I see other things well, etc. Thanks to that. So I think it's a really important step, like every 30 minutes, every hour you play Blast, you get out of the
So, as we know in Blender, there are awesome tools human put on all characters, so animator can a secondary motion.
É, pode crer.
So next I want to talk about. So,
Essas coisas são legais. Muito bom, muito bom. Acho que deu pra inspirar legal. Caramba. Vou fazer um negócio aqui. tem eu em casa, eu vou ver. Como assim? Eita porra. Tudo quadradinho, foda-se. Ah, eu vou ficar doido. Só falta esse. Quadrado. Todos são quadrados. Tudo tem 4 vértices. Não tem nada que não tem 4 vértices aí. Quadrado. Agora eu quero selecionar só esse aqui. Como é que era mesmo o atalho? Pra... Tipo assim, eu quero o select. Qual que é o atalho? Tem um atalho pro select. Aí vai select similar. Shift G. Área poligonal. Área. Isso. Tudo isso extruda para dentro. Plá. É isso mesmo. Assim. E aqui tem um cilindro. Sculpt. Qual tecido? Muito o que tá acontecendo? Gravidade. Eu quero 20. Não acontece nada. Se tacar um subdivision. Uau. Olha que legal. Sei lá, né? O que eu tô fazendo aqui? Isso. Nada. Olha. Interessante. Tá, vai criar um novo. Um novo chamado. Vou pintar isso aqui de distante menos, mais menos. Não sei, não sei. Tá combinando? Mais assim ou mais assim? Tá vendo? Vou trocar a cor disso aqui. Shading. Escudinho. Cópia. 3. Esse aqui. Esse aqui. Deve ser outra cor. Vai ser... cinza. Saturado. E se fosse madeira vermelha? Shift G, select área. Shift D. Separate selection. Volta, seleciona só. Isso. Traz pra frente. Um pouquinho aqui. Isso. E escolhe outro material para assinar. Outline. Eu vou assign. Esse vai ser especular alto, transparente. Vou trocar aqui, ó. Principal por um transparente. Duas pessoas assistindo? Isso é novidade. Eu tô esquecendo. Isso aqui, vamos dizer que tem que ter aqui um outline. Generator, edit selected. E deixar alto thickness. Deixar alto. Esse daqui dá pra reduzir. eu tô fazendo? Vem aqui, ó, e reduz, pô. Tá ligado? Basta fazer isso. Olha, pronto, é um saco de lixo. Tá ligado? Vertex Group? Tipo assim, o que eu tô entendendo aqui? Se eu escolher, tipo, isso aqui. Vamos lá. Não sei. Escolhi esses aqui. Aí eu vou em Mesh, né? Mesh, cadê? Mouse normal, apareça. Vou em Mesh. E esse aqui é o Vertex Group. Adicionar um. Eu vou assinar esses vértices. Quando eu vier aqui vai ter um grupo. Olha que legal. Ele vai lá no grupo. E isso é um outline extra, né? Aumentar thickness. Horroroso. Porque tá em massa, entendi. Se eu olhar de... Entendi. Dá pra acrescentar 2 vezes, tipo... Vamos dizer que... Eu vou acrescentar de novo. Pá. Cria 2. Não cria 2. E a cor da outline? Vou até remover aqui, ó. Remove e acrescenta de novo. Vai mudar a cor. Mudar a cor um pouquinho é bom. Remove outlines. Selected. Fica chicante. Entendi. Eu gostei mais desse. Sério. Ok, como assim? Aqui. flip normals. Vamos dar uma conferida. Isso aí, eles apontam para dentro. E agora uma textura nova vai ser uma environment texture.
So when we are done with basic tune tuners, we are going to get some
Não tô entendendo não. Ah, é. Composite é aqui. Ah, sumiu o composite. Viu? Ah, encontrei. Ah, dificuldade da porra. Mix. Color. Bind color. Separate. Color. Ramp. Mix. Faz o seguinte. Isso aqui vem pra cá, isso aqui vem pra cá. Isso aqui vem aqui. No render output. Por quê? Por que não tem output? É no shading que tá ruim? Não existe, velho. Por que que tá dizendo que não tem output? Tá vendo? Não sei por que tá dizendo isso aí. Não tem output. Tipo assim, ó. Isso aqui. Render image. Não renderiza. Deixa ele aqui. Vou no composite. Não faz isso aqui, ó. Nem no viewer. No render output node ensine. Eu vou ver no Google. No render output ensine. ChatGPT tá me enganando. pena. Como é que é o nome aqui? Composite Viewer. Composite Viewer. Ah. Tá rodando aqui. Quando chegar no sample 50, aí o bagulho fica louco.
Melhorar a qualidade do gasto público, cara. São Paulo hoje não precisa aumentar imposto, não. O orçamento é de 112 bilhões de reais. É o maior orçamento da história da cidade. O problema não é falta de dinheiro, é falta de prefeito.
Isso, vou até encerrar a live, tá rolando
Se você direcionar melhor o gasto
ICL, cara.